Welcome to episode 20 of the Fave podcast, a podcast where I interview friends and family about their life stories, find out about their interests, and get them to share a story with us. Today, I am very happy to be joined by my friend Cheyenne Wilbur. Cheyenne and I go back, I believe, if I've done my math right, to 1965 when we were in middle school, or was Tenafly Junior High School together, Tenafly, New Jersey. So by my reckoning, that's 60 years that we've
Yikes.
known one another.
Scary.
So Cheyenne, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. Thank you so much.
Let's talk about your background first. Where and when were you born?
Before we do that, I just
Yeah.
gotta say, as you dated us, the picture that sticks in my mind is you, me, and a bunch of others, Charlie Willis, Jim Stegmeyer, racing down a hallway where we would try to open lockers. If you twirled it backwards, sometimes it would lock in on the final thing and you could open and then steal lunches as we would head towards more bad behavior into the cafeteria to set braces off on long tables and then slightly nudge the legs in so that if a kid sits down with his tray, it will collapse and then all the trays slide to the floor. Oh, but what fun! And just seeing all of our faces laughing hilariously as we run down the hallways. So,
No further proof needed of how immature we were in junior high school.
yes, correct.
My wife tells me that had she known me at that time, she would have had nothing to do with me thereafter.
Yeah, I know. We did have some bad behavior. Not to
That
mention, remember the cattle drive where if Mrs. Fast, but I think that gets up to 10th grade, turned her back to us, we'd all start moving our portable tables away so that by the end she'd go, something's wrong here. Where's everybody? We'd be in the back of the class, everybody shoved against everybody else.
well, there
Yeah,
were those trailers that were used for
exactly.
and they called it driver trailer one and driver trailer two because they were used for driver's ed, but we had classes in there. And you're saying we would all just move to the back, and eventually I think some people moved out of the classroom
That's
entirely.
right. Out the door. Yeah, but it could indicate that maybe class was a little boring for
Could be.
some of us. So,
Or just what it was in junior high school. The or the organization that I coined the name for that was the Tenafly Table Topplers.
and
And I think I
you had
kept
a radio
records.
station to keep us all alert for
Yeah.
any snow drives to try and make sure we didn't have to go to school the next day by showing up. I got Tom Reisner with the snow blower to throw all this like snow onto doors and then freeze them so they wouldn't be able to open them. So
I
whatever.
believe that before I became a basketball statistician, which I was for many years, the Tenafly Table Toppler stats was probably my first exercise in keeping statistics. Who knew?
Oh, not good.
Well, thank you for that preface to our conversation. We'll get some more of those stories later, but let's start out with
All
where
right.
you were born and when you were born.
Yes, sir. New York City. What is it called? Columbia Presbyterian? No, Presbyterian Hospital. Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. But I think then after, when being taken home to Tenafly, New Jersey. So basically, that's home base from 0 through 18. And what was the other
Well, you were
question?
born in 1953, is that right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Nailed it. Yes, sir.
And what is your ancestry?
I am a WASP, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, I mean, to the hilt. And that's a great question because I'm more educated about that. In I won't go down this road too much, but it's a class. It's called social position, and so it's becoming aware beyond the nuclear family that within our DNA we carry so much more than that nuclear family that goes for generations. It's like wired into our DNA and all that. So in the genealogical work that my dad did, he traced us on his side. So I really don't know much about my mom's side, like nothing. But I do know a lot about my dad's side, which is Wilbur, which was originally Wild Boar. And I am seriously contemplating changing my last name to Wild Boar so that nothing in my name is connected to my name of birth. So Cheyenne Wilbur, let's just get this on the table from the get-go. I changed my name. And so I was John, and you knew me as John. And Doug still calls me John, and I'm okay with that now. Doug, by the way, friend of ours, mutual. And so it's 15th generation white Anglo-Saxon Protestant to Samuel Wildboar in the 1500s in uh, Chatsworth, or maybe some different, just outside London. And he decided he was going to leave his family, leave everything, and go to the great new world, which he did. And he sailed over to Providence, Rhode Island. And that's where the wild boar, which morphed into Wilbur, started to proliferate up and down the New England seaboard up to Maine, which is where my grandfather was born. And then he had a vision of Jesus in the cornfields of Maine, calling him into the ministry. And that, for whatever reason, he decided to go to seminary on the West Coast called the Pacific School of Religion, which still exists in Berkeley. And his first church was in Soquel, California, outside Santa Cruz, where he met the lead singer in the choir, and that's who he married. And her last name was Nutter. What was her first name? And this is the sad thing because I think I'm not unusual. All I really know is my nuclear family. I do not have a sense of extended family, cousins. I know they exist. I don't really know them. But anyway, my dad, being an itinerant preacher, let's say, my dad was born in Sprague, Washington, just outside of Spokane, Washington. And then his kind of teenage years were in Hood River, Oregon, and then he, after graduating from college, uh, moved to New York City, and other stories in between there. But met my mother at Union Theological Seminary in New York City, and that's sort of the tale.
Okay. And you said you lived in Tenafly till age 18, and you've lived other places I know. Where have you lived after that?
Well, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. There's probably a myriad reasons. Because boy, our last 2 years in high school were just a joy, just a joy. I'll just say that right front. I don't know. I guess you had gone then by that time, Stan.
I
But
left after the junior year, so I
well,
wasn't
then
there.
okay, you were there in the junior year. So, did you know Raj and Barb? Does that mean anything to you?
Raj
No.
and Barb.
Yeah, Raj and Barton. Okay. So anyway, from there I went to Ohio for college, Oberlin College. From there, latched on to uh, a job that took me to Las Vegas. Then back to outside Chicago. I was doing a lot of political work, and then that I latched on to a guy named Ken Bodie, and or he latched on to me. Go figure. I mean, the job in Las Vegas was a Senate campaign. Maya Miller, we lost. The job in Chicago was interviewing all state legislators. This was for an organization called Common Cause, and then got hired in the uh, national campaign for Morris Udall for president. 76 now we're talking. So I was all over the country at that point: Iowa, New Hampshire, New York, Michigan. After that, Princeton, New Jersey. No, well, anyway, um, a summer job in Berkeley, which turned out to change my life. I don't know, but we might not get into that. But then Princeton, New Jersey, 3 years, then a call to church as an ordained minister, Sacramento, California, then up to Port Townsend, Washington after I left the ministry, then over to Hawaii for 4 years, back to the mainland to San Francisco to get training in acting, up to Seattle for 10 years, down to Los Angeles. Oh, also jobs of acting in Spokane, Washington, Juneau, Alaska, down to Los Angeles, California. And this is the longest place I've ever lived in my recorded life, which is now 30 years and counting in the Los Angeles area.
And when you were growing up, who else was in your family?
Judy, Jerry, Johnny, the three J's, and Marv and Marie, the M&Ms. And it was a five-person family, which seemed to be sort of the standard operating equipment for the American family. And yep, that's who was in the family.
And what did your parents do?
They were both, I'm hesitating. I think they were both ordained ministers. Like I said, they met at Union Theological Seminary. My mom then started as typical of a woman, though atypical for any kind of woman to be in clergy kind of role, and most especially for her from the South. She was from Lynchburg, Virginia, and three brothers who had no more than a high school education worked at a gas station, owned a gas station, end of story, full, whatever you call it, stop. But here's a woman, I don't know who encouraged her, who went to college, Lynchburg College, graduated, I don't know who encouraged her, and then went to get a master's degree, unheard of in the 40s, 1940s, we're talking about. And not only that, but go to the North with those damn Yankees and get a liberal religious education, not evangelical, which was totally the milieu for Lynchburg, Virginia. We're talking Jerry Falwell. And so, anyway, she was going to go, she was working in Indiana and, in Christian education, which is what most women did. If they were going to be, it was going to be Sunday school, not preaching from a pulpit. My dad never preached from a pulpit. He was a chaplain at Yale University. He joined the Navy. He was a chaplain on some kind of big boat that would carry new troops or fresh troops over to the eastern stage, like, Japan and all that, and then take the wounded back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Um, and so he became part of after that, the National Presbyterian Church operation in New York City as vice president of the United Presbyterian Foundation, which is the sort of fundraising branch of the Presbyterian Church, meaning carving up the country into different segments, assigning individuals to then develop a relationship with the mega rich people, of which there are many, and then see if they can remember the Presbyterian Church in their will and turn over stuff. And so my mom, though, really was, I think, frustrated as a housewife, got a second master's degree in library sciences, and became the librarian for first the elementary school that I went to, Stillman Elementary School, and then secondly, the Tenafly Public Library. She was the head librarian, and then she retired. So she was just so active. She was on the Board of Education when Tenafly was considering building a new high school, which became highly controversial. The first like draft of that was turned down by the townspeople, that it was too expensive. And ironically, the one that finally was voted in was about twice the cost of what could have been a beautiful school with a swimming pool and everything, where Knickerbocker Country Club, I don't know if that place is still there, but anyway, it would have been different.
So when you were in school, what did you like to do?
Which school are we talking?
Uh,
College?
no,
Seminary?
starting out when you were young.
You know what? Actually, if there is a strain through or a thread through this, it is making trouble. I mean, and really, you look at me, I'm not a thug. I do not like beat up kids for their Halloween candy. Though I got beat up for my Halloween candy. That's not fair. I think I even know the guy's name. Gary, no, I'm not going to mention names. I might get sued. But uh, just being kind of a smartass to make people laugh. I've always liked making people laugh. That somehow makes me feel really good inside and appreciated. And I suppose you could go underneath that is a profound insecurity that I'm not going to be accepted. And if people are laughing at me or with me, I guess I play the part of the fool. And that's more, it may be sometimes I do feel like I'm humiliating myself. And okay, yes, I've been in therapy most of my life, but I do think it just makes me feel that I belong. So, grade school, let's say starting in middle school, grade school was fine. Middle school, though, got insecurity like, oh my God, it's all these big, lots of people now. Where do I belong? Who am I with? How can I be funny? And so finding you and Charlie Willis and all these really smart people, Bob Weissman, um, who we just kind of bonded in making fun of school. And then in Oberlin College, basically for people who feel like outsiders. It is not for mainstream. It's not UCLA. It's not USC. It's not any of the Ivies. It's this outsider conglomeration of very special people who are very talented, very gifted, one of the best music conservatories in the country. And yet we're kind of ostracized into the cornfields of Ohio. Ohio? What the heck? Oh, sorry if anybody's from Ohio, but anyway, it was definitely culture and geography shock for a kid from New York City area. But then most especially acted out in seminary. And again, finding a tribe where we could just do pranks. Like there was this bell that would ring to mark the end of class. Well, we disconnected the wires on the bell, so it didn't work. So it was very enjoyable to watch the professor being very confused and looking around. Isn't it time for class to be over? And has anybody heard the bell? And yuck, 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 yuck. He's never going to figure it out, or just anyway, being a badass.
When you were young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted everybody to know my name, full stop. Pretty narcissistic, full confession.
Didn't matter doing what, just as long as you were well known.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, you went to college and you actually started out at Lake Forest College, did you not?
Whoa! Yes, sir. Good footnote. And it was also the worst ever time of my life. Yeah, and okay, so let's put this in context. I was raised in a Presbyterian church. So back to the WASP, which is a derogatory term. It's like Howley for white people in Hawaii. Um, but I embrace it with love and compassion. And that's trying to own my past. But yes, the glitch was me and Tim Osborne were best buds as seniors in high school, and we both went to interview at Ohio schools together with his dad, and we both decided Oberlin College was our number one choice. And um, so we both didn't get in, and we were put on the waiting list. Now, I don't know how I figured this out, but just to keep this short, um, I I found out who was a board of trustee who lived near me, and I arranged to meet with him, and we did. We had a personal meeting. I sat down with him and I said how much I want to go to Oberlin College, and is there anything possible that you can do for me? And he did. He got me in. The condition though was I did not start in September. I would be starting in January, a second semester entering student. So me and Tim said, well, let's go to Europe. We'll put on backpacks and we're going to have the time of our life. And I'm all in until my dad took over and said, that's not happening. You're going to school or you're not getting any financial backing from me. He always had a way of just leveraging it so that it was just because we could go down that road. I tried to go to Woodstock. That's not happening. I tried to go to Strawberry Fields Festival. If you think you're going to be using the family car, because now driver's age, if you go to Strawberry Fields, and I was all prepared, and this was always with me and Tim, I was all prepared to go and run away in essence, but I always chickened out because I just couldn't kind of stomach the consequences that he was, you know. So anyway, he said, "Go find yourself a college because you're going to college." So my guidance counselor pointed out Lake Forest College. Basically, I got in with hardly even filling out an application, and there were consequences unforeseen that I paid dearly to go to that college. When I showed up, I was incredibly angry, incredibly kind of uh, well immature. Just didn't know. I had this girlfriend, Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl, and I just was a mess when I showed up there. And I knew that I know now I went into a deep depression and I didn't have the vocabulary at that time. I didn't know who to talk to about it. It was to me, it was a untenable life. I couldn't sleep. My heart beat too fast. Always had background noise in my head. I survived, and there were some very special things that happened at Lake Forest. I learned how to swim. I just had resigned myself to, well, I just won't know how to swim. But I signed up, and I was the only one that showed up. And the guy said, "What are you waiting for? Get in the water." And so he was wonderful. It was one-on-one swimming lessons, and gosh, oh golly, I went to in Oberlin, went on to swim conditioning, lifesaver, whatever. And the other thing is, I took piano lessons at Lake Forest. Now I had been playing piano since I was 5, and yes, music is absolutely, it's the bloodline it is my life force. And so perhaps in a previous question I should have thrown music in when I said no, I just wanted people to know my name. Yeah, I wanted music and I played piano. And George Keitel's father, after I had quit, he started teaching me jazz theory. So God bless Mr. Keitel. And then it continued. I had one-on-one piano lessons. I don't know how that was worked out. And a great English teacher who was so encouraging of my writing. And so, yeah, that was Lake Forest.
And when you got to Oberlin, what did you study there?
Stan, I'm going to throw a footnote in there.
Okay.
And I know this hour is going to pass so frickin' quickly, so I apologize. But this is how profound Lake Forest was. It is in your darkest moments that you find God. And I'll fill that out about because it is all about that defines me. That when I finally came home for Thanksgiving break from Lake Forest, and I talked to Cheryl, and no disrespect, I thought it was just because I missed my girlfriend. And I could see when I was explaining it to her, she didn't understand what I was talking about. And I also was saying, this is not going to fix it. And I was really at the end of my line. And I just remember at the family gathering for dinner, candlelight, mom sitting across from me, sister catty corner, brother to my right, father at the head of the table. And my mom opens with the most, softball question of all. Well, how's school, honey? And I just go, not so good. And so then she softball follow up. Oh, what do you mean? And all of a sudden, my body just went its own. And I started sobbing. And I had an out of body experience because I didn't know myself to cry. And I was like outside myself going, wow, this is amazing. But it was also life giving. I was being birthed. I felt like I'm alive. where I was like dying, and everybody freaked out. Like my dad popped up, went behind me, started like I don't know what he was doing, like massaging my shoulders or something. But it was he was like trying to put the Jack in the Box back in the box because
Yeah.
this is not normal. And then
Yeah.
my sister starts like screaming, he's crazy. He needs a psychiatrist. He's crazy. We're all crazy. I hate this family. I hate living here. And she goes on one of her rants. And sorry, Judy, I hope you never see this. But so like from there, when I went up to my bedroom that night, and I did not believe in God, I thought it was for people who were too chicken to face the truth of life. And I got on my knees and I prayed, and I felt answered, not by words. I just felt this calm descend upon me, and I was able to sleep that night as if for the first time. And that was my first believing in God. I didn't want to analyze it, didn't want to intellectualize it because it was saving my life, literally. So that's the little epilogue there to Lake Forest.
Okay. So then the second semester you entered Oberlin, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what were you planning to study there?
I had no idea. I was just wanting to live and survive and meet people. And so, yeah, that was the last thing. I guess, in hindsight, I think I squandered my, but a big part about college is learning how to get along with people and being out of the nest. And it is kind of a soft landing ground for becoming an adult. And I took full advantage of that. And yes, Tim became my roommate. Not that year, because like I said, he didn't get in. He reapplied and got, or maybe he got taken off. But we were roommates for my sophomore year, his freshman year, and it was just night and day. It was so much fun. I became a communications major just because I worked on the radio station. Super enjoyed doing that and just figuring out your own playlist and working with vinyl and talking on a microphone with two people maybe listening. And who cares? It was just fun. And it actually continued something that was a life force for me. It was a tumultuous period. We need to recall all this. The context was early 70s, Vietnam War, and FM radio ascending into prominence as the place to find the truth. When bullshit, oh, anyway, I don't know if I can swear on this. Can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Okay. When bullshit was coming out of AM, cranked up top 10, then you get these guys, WNEW FM, Scott Muni, Roscoe, first guy with just one name. And he would always close out his sessions with, just remember, I sure love you so. And I took that seriously. I felt like that was my family. This guy preaches truth. And so was the music. Crosby, Stills, Nash, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. All, these people, we were all like bonding together under, this kind of siege, which I think a lot of us are experiencing right now, of an American power structure out of control. So there we
So
are.
after you graduated, take us through some of the highlights of your career thereafter.
Well, it was then a short stint in politics. I think I'm going to skip over that.
Okay, sure.
And so and then 3 more years, master's degree, Master of Divinity, Princeton Seminary, and kind of, again, like I said, being a badass, disrespecting really the institute. Well, again, the hot button issue was apartheid in South Africa, and as came out just now recently in the Gaza thing, of realizing sort of the connections between university campuses and what is so seriously wrong with our country. And it all boils down to it's always that trope of follow the money. And that Princeton Seminary, really a Christian institution, they separated from Princeton University for that very reason in the late 1800s, having major stock holdings in General Motors, a supporter of apartheid in South Africa. They had factories, they paid blacks a lesser wage than whites for the same work. And Union Carbide, a developer of nerve gas and other, weapons of mass destruction, and they're reaping profits off of those, let's just say, Christian unethical companies. Didn't make sense. So we were demanding that they, um, you know, what's that called? When you get rid of those,
Divest.
thank you, divest of those things. So, so the career, though, let's say, began while I was at Princeton Seminary. I did experience some success writing. I had two pieces published by the New York Times. I had Martin Arnold, the managing editor of the New York Times Magazine, personally call me and basically invite me to write an article for the magazine section about Princeton Seminary, which I was blown away about. But he said, basically, as William Buckley wrote God and Yale or something like that, a conservative person basically blowing up. Again, it's so topical right now that Yale was this liberal conclave and was not really open to varying opinions or opinions from the conservative political side, let's just say. So he was saying, do that to Princeton Seminary. From a liberal perspective, analyze the culture of Princeton Seminary. And I dutifully did. But they never used it, and I understand why. There was attitude there. It was just it didn't work. But as I've reread that piece, and God bless Princeton Seminary because they have completely changed the ethos culture of that campus, starting with their new president, Jonathan, I forget his last name, who is an African American. He's a graduate of Harvard. He's got all the creds, but man, the optics are just so much better. It's not just a white male bastion of patriarchy. It does have a lot of women in their faculty, a lot of women in their administration, a lot more different races, ethnicities, the whole population, a lot more attention. They're the first one to offer reparations for, yes, they were involved in slavery during those times. So post that, I thought I would just continue freelance writing, but that's not the way it went. The dean of admissions, wonderful guy, called me up, said, I have a job I think you'd like. Just to cut to the chase, I became an assistant minister at a Presbyterian church in Sacramento, California. Um, the title was Pastor of Hunger Ministries. So in a lot of ways, it was a social work kind of ministry to go after the hunger issue. And they had a homeless crisis then. And so it was a great job. It was a great job.
All right. So then when did you leave the ministry?
Yeah, so I was taking a lot of shadow baggage wherever I went. There was a lot of things that needed to be worked out, a lot of therapy that needed to be had. And when I finally kind of started coming into my own through therapy, it was an ability that, because I kind of felt like I didn't have control of the wheel of my life. I was in a car and it was like being at an amusement park that had, you're in a car and it's on its own rails. And you don't have any, you can play with the steering wheel, but it's not going to take it anywhere. It's just, you're just going to go on those rails. So I did not feel connected to my life. And that included the reality of being a minister. I was not fully engaged. It was like it's not exactly imposter syndrome because I knew I could do a good job at it. It just, I was questioning, is this what God wants me to do? Do I believe in God? Very weak faith. Anyway, I took over and decided I want to write and I want to take control of my life and maybe I'm going to crash the car and so what? It's like you get one chance, one chance. I do not want to be asleep at the wheel and suddenly realize I'm retired and about to die and what the hell was that for? I don't want to please people anymore because that's what it was all about. It was all about succumbing to what my parents wanted for me. It was succumbing to whatever, the powers that be. And I just left the grid of career advancement and moved up to this off the grid town called Port Townsend, Washington, which is the most nurturing, safe, unbelievable little place on earth. Northeast Olympic Peninsula, 2 hours out of Seattle. Began to heal, began to completely change my life, began to go into a bohemian lifestyle. I suppose you could say it was the hippie period for me, and just give myself permission to just stop trying to advance. Just stop and take it in. And now what? It was a complete radical 180-degree boop switch. So from there, if we're talking career, I went on a poverty lifestyle. I would there were periods of times I got food stamps. I would eat government issued food, which is scary because you get these giant 10-pound chunks of cheese that have no expiration date, which makes you wonder. And you get bags of rice, which was like, well, how long has this been around? But I was kind of in heaven. I worked in a collective restaurant. I became a waiter and then was advanced to be a prep cook, and I then uh, eventually left that job and became a barista. And that started my whole passion with espresso coffee with these three ladies who owned this wonderful, it was called the Ace of Cups. And one was the baker, and she was gifted. They were all gifted, but she made cakes like you don't believe. But would also get upset, like when I once saw a nice Devil Foods cake. Unfortunately, it was sticking to the wall where she had thrown it, and it just stayed there. And nobody ever bothered to take it off. So I guess she was mad about something. But another one was the bookkeeper, and another one made these incredible ambrosial soups. She was the soup maker, and we had a wonderful restaurant. And yeah, just kind of,
So did you write during that time?
I did. Yeah, I wrote two books, picked up an agent quickly, didn't get it published, the first one. Actually, no, that's not true. I wrote the first book while I was at ministry at the church. And the agent I met him at a writing conference, but Roland Tapp, and he was almost retired. My literary agents are almost people that like are retired. And I don't know, that maybe they just take like a kindness to me or whatever. He tried, we didn't get anything. But yes, but the significant thing about Port Townsend is when the acting kicked in. And I was working at the restaurant and saw on the bulletin board a audition call to do Barefoot in the Park, Neil Simon, with the Keystone Players. This wonderful, and anywhere you go, there's always community theater. And anywhere you go in that community theater is real talent. I swear, I am an advocate of community theater, putting on great shows. And to this day, Keystone Theater is still there in Port Townsend with a very healthy subscription base. And so I got cast for the lead. Go figure. Never done it. Well, yes, in seminary, I did do a short Edward Albee play called The American Dream. And people came up to me afterwards and said, "Boy, you're really good. I got some lovely feedback. You must do acting a lot." And I said, "No, I was the baker in fifth grade. I had the lead part, and I enjoyed it." So that's a thread that got picked up, and the let's just say the Port Townsend experiences where acting eclipsed writing. I just loved the instant family about acting. Writing is a lonely task. And yeah, it's important to have a writing group. It's important to kind of find a tribe. But when you're doing it, you're by yourself. And that's not the case for theater. It's a collaborative effort, and I just loved it. I loved rehearsals more than I loved performing, because it's safe in rehearsal. In performing, there's no net. If you're screwing up, it's keep going. So yeah.
So then did you become an actor after that?
Well, I moved to Hawaii and continued. And believe it or not, there was incredible theater on the Big Island. They Aloha Cafe Theater. It's in Kealakekua, just south of Kailua Kona. We did Fiddler on the Roof. We did Man of La Mancha. And this was during the AIDS epidemic. So there was a lot of people just getting away from New York City and the terrible, terrible epidemic, and some who did have AIDS. And my director did die of AIDS, and I saw him in his hospital room in his last days, but we were doing some great work, and I was just really being managed just so lovingly towards finally in the on the Big Island coming to grips with, okay, really, you're going to stay here the rest of your life, and realizing, no, this does not feel right. I feel like I'm running away. I need to figure out, so what's next? And I decided I'm going to be a professional actor. Well, there was a turning point. It was music or acting, and I had enrolled in Naropa Institute, Allen Ginsberg. It's a fully accredited grad school college in Boulder, Colorado. They had a great new age music department. I interviewed there. I got accepted, had a financial package all ready to go, and a director came up to me and said, I want you to audition for, I'm directing Streetcar Named Desire. I want you to audition for Stanley Kowalski. I'm going, what? I'm there. And I got the part. And it conflicted with when I was supposed to show up to start this master degree in music. And I made a choice there, and I've never looked back. And so that's when, okay, I'm going professional. Came back, studied at American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. It was a summer training congress, they call it. I was in heaven. I was just in heaven. Stayed with a good friend in the Berkeley area to do this, and then that. Now what? And that was that summer that there was that terrible earthquake that collapsed the Oakland Bay Bridge during the World Series. I always remember these things with the World Series.
Right.
And I was thinking of staying there. And when that earthquake happened, I go, I got to get out of California. This place is crazy. And so I went to Seattle because it's the only other thing. I didn't want to go to New York. That just seemed over my head. And Seattle, I just knew that city because of Port Townsend. And I thought that's where I'd get my union cards. Sidebar, I did not. But that's where I lived for the next 10 years. Again, living, I mean, if we're talking career advancement, this was your classic actor lifestyle. You have your day job, which is just barely, getting you. I mean, your overhead is very low. I wasn't married, nothing like that. I'd kind of given up on marriage. I'm in my 30s at this point, and but I'm happy. And my job was, this is when I fell into my new career, which was telemarketing, and I sold season tickets for the Seattle Repertory Theater. I was first selling season tickets for the Seattle Opera, one of the best opera houses in the country, by the way. Seattle has just such a vibrant arts community. It is an unbelievable city. Anybody who listens to this who is young and has any kind of desire in the arts, head over to Seattle. And I was receiving some serious training now, really getting some tools for acting with this place called Freehold, which was a bunch of actors, and we were learning Meisner technique and stuff like that while doing shows. Usually, $600 stipend. That's what I get. Doing more musicals, and it's kind of the lowly actor life.
Now, later on, you became a television actor, and what did you act in that realm?
Um, Well, I did go down to Los Angeles to try and make more money. And, I did pick up an agent pretty quickly. I very quickly did a non-union commercial for Peugeot, which was the most fun job. It was a $10,000 buyout. And I was flown to Mexico City, and it was a total international operation. It was done by this French production company. It was actors from the United States. It was grips and all sorts of production people from Mexico. And Mexico City was awesome. And that, I guess, the first TV show was a CBS sitcom, and it was Brett Butler. Brett Butler was a woman comedian. She had one of the sitcoms in the country. And my unfortunate timing for booking a part in that show was that she had some drug addiction problems, probably alcohol, and she was just hell to work with. And I guess the producer, I mean, I witnessed it. It was, in a what they call a three camera or two camera. It's performed in front of a live audience. So it's kind of a hybrid theater, but it's a TV show. And so there, you're hired for the entire week. You do it from the table read to rehearsing, blocking, and now you do what you might consider in theater as a kind of a stage, kind of a oh God, my mind is blanking now. But anyway, the producers show up, and she just had a fit. She just said, "Can anybody write for this show? My mom says this is not funny. If my mom says this is not funny, this is not. I'm done. I'm going to be in my trailer." She's like smoking in a studio. You're not supposed to be smoking. And she has a Coke can. She throws it across the floor, and she very dramatically leaves. Production got together that night. They decided to just yank the cord. There's millions of dollars on this. So many people. Tom Postum, if you remember, who was
Yeah,
like a
sure.
regular on To Tell the Truth or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
He was a series regular on that show. I mean, 100 people, let's just say, getting their way of living from this show. And for her histrionics, they just decided, we're done. We're done. So that episode never got aired. Bummer. But it got me my union card, and it just kept, I guess most of the, like ER and Monk, um, True Blood. I was just kind of recurring there. It didn't last long. The vampire guy killed me off in the second episode, but I was the lead's uncle who sexually abused her. Backstory. So but somebody's got to do it. I get usually hired to be. He kind of looks normal, but no, he's not. And so commercials, stuff like that.
Okay. So then
I
you
guess
eventually
mostly
ended
would
up,
be.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, I was just going to say for the most recent booking, it was Dexter Original Sin, and I'm right now as we speak being considered for a national commercial campaign for Colonial Penn, which I think is a life insurance company. Keep your fingers crossed.
All right. Good luck to that.
Thank you.
When did you get into real estate?
When I got married, and I met my now ex-wife doing a show, Sound of Music. She was Maria. I was Hans Detweiler, the sort of slimy agent, but kind of helps him get out of Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
And she was an actress, and I thought, oh, this is such a great thing. We're just going to start our own theater. We'll have a bohemian lifestyle. That was not to be. It's like after marriage, she said, you know what? I'm not going to continue acting. It's just full of all these egomaniacs, and all they want to do is be famous. There's nothing true about it. It's not an art. I'm out of here. And by the way, I'm not supporting you. So you need to get some real money. So I was selling theater tickets to a real estate agent. She started talking to me and said, you're good. Have you ever thought about doing real estate? And I said, no. But I was. She said, I think you should think about it. You could get some more significant money. Why don't you, here's my business number. Give me a call. We'll talk. She introduced me to a class in order to get a license. I followed her instruction and kind of went from there. And so I liked it. I thought it used my skill set, all the different, there's ministry involved in real estate. There is, of course, sales involved in real estate. And it's a lot of people work.
Hmm.
So uh, it's done me well. It has done me well. 25 years and counting.
Now I'm going to ask you about your other interests. I know you like to run. When did you start doing that?
Well, it became a requirement for my biology course in college that we had to all run 1 mile, which I thought I was going to die doing. But yeah, I got the bug, and from then on, I just was running, but I didn't get really serious about it until my eldest son became a track star. And man, was I living off of his fame. But I started thinking, you know what? This is maybe a little unhealthy. Why don't you kind of go for your thing? And I realized that I could, that there's races always, anywhere, everywhere. I specialized in 5K. I got a trainer. I was ending up in the top five, if not winning, in my age category. And it was very, yeah, nourishing. I enjoyed it a lot. I still do it, but my body is, unfortunately, it's breaking down. So.
Any other interests that you enjoy?
Oh, no question. I'm a writer. I will be coming out with a book, hopefully in the next month or two. And I'm very proud of it. And I do want to hope that a lot of people read it. And music. I've determined I'm going to purchase a Yamaha U1 upright piano as a birthday slash Christmas gift to myself, and I'm going to put it right behind me in this living room here, where another upright is there, but I just realized it's in terrible shape,
Hmm.
and maybe get some piano lessons, some more piano.
Okay.
Um, and I'm really, it must be said, feeling this. I'm still an ordained minister. And I feel like this is deeply coming back into my life. I'm leaning big time into my local Presbyterian church. And I'm also just returned from this like mid place called Go Ranch outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico, high def country, ironically owned by the Presbyterian Church, and where Georgia O'Keeffe did some of her most wonderful paintings, being trained in spiritual direction to kind of come alongside someone to just converse on maybe can we perceive how God might be working in your life? If so, how relationship might become a more close relationship, perhaps, and discovering how does God speak to you in your life? In what way? It's not with words necessarily. So I'm excited about that, and it's a 2 year program. Food, and of course, espresso. I am totally, yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to tell a story now. What story would you like to share with us?
So here's the story. And it just kind of resonated. So I mean, I went through all those kind of prompts. Um, I was just a couple of months ago, my youngest son, and I adore both of my sons. And they, again, I'm sure every dad kind of sees this, like they are so different and yet they are so the same. And well, he hit the jackpot and he got accepted to Stanford University. So he's a sophomore there. And I think for my divorce, he is the one who suffered the most because he was the youngest. And it was just like pulling the rug out from under him for a world that at that point seemed safe. And now it was a world that was not safe. And he literally did not even want to get out of bed. It was a tough struggle, and he made it. He's in Stanford. That doesn't necessarily mean he made it, just saying. Um, so I'm driving him back this past September, and it's dark, and I have a open house to do the next day. So I rented a car, and then I was going to fly back from San Jose. And we're late. We're like in my own mind, we're like a couple hours late, and I just want to go to bed. It's like 8:30 at night, and I got to get up early and blah blah blah. And so we're about 10 minutes away from the campus, and he goes, "Dad, we need to take a break. We need to stop." And I'm thinking, what? And I go, like, we're only 10 minutes away. It's like, no, I need to stretch my legs. And I'm like, what? I didn't say that to him, but I'm going, stretch your legs. Um, but I said, okay. And I thought, oh, well, I can get gas in the car. I'll get gas. So he's my navigator. I say, okay, tell me where a gas station is. Okay, take this exit. So I take this exit and I go, so how far away is the gas station? He said, oh, it's just 2 miles. And I go, 2 miles? This is going to take like 45 minutes. I just want to go to bed. Again, I'm not saying any of this. And we're driving in darkness and I see this sign that says Prince of Peace. And I turn into a parking lot and I say, Liam, we're not going to get gas. So if you need to stretch your legs, let's do it here. And it turns out to be a Presbyterian church. Now, both of my boys don't believe in God. I get it. I've planted some seeds, but we get out. Whew, okay. I try to keep this without falling apart. We go pee in different corners, and he says, he doesn't want to get back in the car. He says, let's go explore. Now I'm starting to figure this out. I'm thinking he's getting nervous about going back to this Stanford culture. And yeah, he did have his moments freshman going, I don't know if I belong here, Dad. I don't know if I can do this. And he made it, but I think it's coming too fast. And he just wanted a little more time with his dad. And he doesn't get it yet. The real dad. So, like, Dad, look, there's a meditation garden. You'd like this. Let's go look at it. So we follow this sign. We go look at that. Then he hears music. What's that? It was coming out of the sanctuary. Let's go look. The side door is open. We're like thieves stalking around this building. And we're like putting our head like, and it's like a choir just rehearsing. He says, I think they're performing. I said, no, no, no. They're just rehearsing. He said, well, let's listen. So then he puts his arm around me. It's killing me. And so we just stood up and I said, let's go. So we did. And that will stick with me for the rest of my life. I think he's starting to feel we're in those moments of darkness. There is a place to turn to. And it was the grace of God. He didn't say, hey, Dad, take me to a Presbyterian church. Again, was Dad working? I mean, was Dad working in there? You bet. You bet. You can call it like it's just an intuition, it's just a hunch. But to me, that's the voice of God in our lives, personally speaking. And if you follow that, that's when the adventure begins. No question. That's life.
So that was just recently, the September of this year?
Correct.
Okay. And how has he done since then?
I have to assume he's okay. I've talked to him on the phone a couple of times. I'm going to be, meeting him for Thanksgiving. We're both going to meet in Logan Airport in Boston to have Thanksgiving with my sister and Dylan, who's living in New York City. Um, but yeah, I think he's got a light course load. And I think he's with his two best friends, which one was his roommate last year. So um, I think he's doing okay.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Thanks for
Thank
sharing
you.
that story.
Thank you.
So we have a limited amount of time left. What I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is to do a lightning round. Does that work? I'm going to ask you some
You
quick
bet.
questions on
All
the
right.
five topics, and you're going to give me a quick answer and move on to the next one. All right?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll start with reading. Do you like to read? And if so, what do you like to read?
Absolutely. Catch 22, Joseph Heller.
Do you like to eat?
Yes and no. It's a love-hate relationship because I have a very touchy stomach. And so I'm almost afraid every time I put something in my mouth, like, how's this going to turn out? So, I guess if the next question is, what do you like to eat? Cheerios.
That's your best meal there, huh?
That's it.
All right. Well, if we were to go out to eat together, which we have done, where would you take me?
Oh, oh, okay. Where would I take? Well, I got to go with it. It's this burger place, and they make sublime burgers, sublime milkshakes, sublime French fries. It's right across from the Pasadena Playhouse in Pasadena, and I actually can't tell you what the name of it is. I
Okay.
just am drawn to it by the smell. I'm like one of those Warner Brothers cartoons with the tendrils of odor, and they just start like that's how it
Okay.
works.
So if I look it up, I'll be able to figure out which one it is.
You'll have to use like an aerial map or
Okay.
something. Just
Okay.
find that one across the street from Pasadena Playhouse. And
Okay.
if you
Got it.
show up, let's go there. That's on me.
All right. So next subject is music, and you said you love music. What is your favorite song or musician or album?
Liz Story, hands down, she's changed my life this year. I got to personally meet her. I flew 2,500 miles to hear her in concert. I've never done that for any performer ever. It is God the Mother through her fingers.
What was the first record you bought?
Hmm. Uh, Strawberry Fields? What is that? Is
Well, that would have been a single, right? The
I don't
single.
know. Is that a band or was that played by Amboy Dukes?
Well, there was Strawberry Alarm Clock. Are you thinking of
Yes,
them?
Strawberry
Okay.
Alarm Clock.
Incense
First
and
album.
Peppermints.
Yes, there we go. First
Okay.
album.
What was the last concert that you attended?
Liz Story.
Okay. Um, what sports do you enjoy?
Kennedy Center, I should ground that. It was at the Kennedy Center in a gorgeous, like 250 seat theater. Did you know, factoid, seven theaters in the Kennedy Center?
Interesting. I understand that their attendance is down in the current climate back there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
What sports do you enjoy watching?
Baseball, basketball, uh, I just like watching any sports. I like watching Little League. I mean, ESPN is, well, YouTube is this treasure trove of just beautiful kind of summaries of sports. But Little League World Series, love it. Women's college sports, definitely women's college basketball ever since what's her face? What's
Caitlin
her
Clark?
Oh my God, love it, love it, love it, love it. It's kind of brutal watching her in professional women college. She's just getting the shit knocked
Yeah.
out of her, and no wonder she sat out all of last year. I'm sure she was ready to go, but she's like, "I'm not going back there.
Do
That thing's a jungle."
you
So,
have a favorite athlete?
well, Otani right now, God, Lee. I mean, oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
How about a favorite sports memory?
Ha. Oh, here's what's coming. Meeting Amy Grant on the Seattle Mariners baseball field for opening day baseball season. I was on the field as a dancer in a choreographed work with the Seattle Mariners mascot out at second base. And Amy Grant was going to sing the national anthem. And I'm running off the field and I'm like, hold on. Why am I leaving so quickly? This is the only time I walk on the grass of a professional baseball team. And then I look to my right. Oh, it's Amy Grant. I think I'll go talk to her. What possessed me? I have no idea. I go, hey, Amy, I'm a huge fan of you. And instead of her just blowing me off, she turned around and said, oh, well, what are you doing? And I told her, oh, I was just dancing out here. Like, I just flip it right back at her. What are you doing? Well, I'm going to sing the national anthem. Oh, great. And she said, well, I'm a little nervous. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. It's easy. You just do it. Now her security people are starting to give me the stink eye, like, get out of here, bud.
She
So
didn't she didn't
that
ask you to sing with her at that time?
that would have been cool.
That would have been.
Uh, but anyway,
All right. Our fifth category is humor. Do you have a favorite comedian or a comedy film or a show?
oh, Steve Martin, all hands down. And my newest one is that guy, Nate. Is that his name? And he hosted the Emmys. Do you remember that? Is it Nick or Nate or something?
I
His
don't remember,
last
but
name. Well, he does like family humor,
yeah.
and he is awesome. awesome. I've just been doing deep dives on him through YouTube. The last name begins with a B, but
Okay.
Nick or Nate something.
All right. Well, look, I'll write that down. Nick or Nate, and we'll get
Yeah,
that.
worth your while. The guy is
Okay.
just sharp.
All right. And the last question that you said you like to make people laugh. Who's the best at making you laugh?
I really pondered on that question. And so this is what came up. It's this woman who's kind of a new acquaintance for me. She's at my church. Her name is Julia. And she just cracks me up. She has that kind of, like sort of rubbery face that can make so many facial gestures. And she's so animated. She just matches my kind of humor. And we totally just get each other off on this like humor stuff. So yeah, she's a sweetheart.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up our session by telling a story of my own, which is I'm going to refer to the fact that twice you've come with me to see my brother play at Herb Albert's Vibrato Jazz Grill,
Love him.
and you've
Yes.
been an enthusiastic audience member. But the first time we were sitting right up against the stage, and right in front of you was the singer Liliana de los Reyes, and you were quite enamored with her as a performer. And after the show, I recall you you chased her out to have some kind of a
Yeah.
meeting.
I was a group.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I was appreciated being such a good fan right off the bat.
Yeah. I do love her too. Yeah. Enough said.
So we will be back in California for the winter, and I hope
Hey,
that we will meet up again. Maybe we'll go and see another show at Vibrato.
do you think David will be playing in the winter?
I'm pretty sure. I think he'll play. He'll be there.
Okay. Great. Yeah. I would love to do that. Absolutely. I've had a
Well,
good year, Stan, so we're generous with the food.
I wanted to ask you as a final question, since you mentioned that you were originally known as John Wilbur when I first met you, and then you changed your name to Cheyenne. Tell us about that. How did you make that decision?
Okay. Um, and living in Port Townsend, probably I was 28. Um, and mind you, this was a community that's kind of off the grid. There's people whose names are Sunshine and I don't know, whatever. So, but I was not thinking of changing my name. I did not dislike my name, but I was definitely so committed to wanting to get a personal relationship with God, wanting to be sort of ordinary mystical. That's actually a name, ordinary mystic, sorry, which is someone who is personally connected. So I woke up and I had the word Cheyenne. And I thought that I was trying to kind of like, why is that word in my consciousness? What's that about? And as I kind of processed it, I felt like God was challenging me. Do you have the guts to be so foolish as to change your name for me? And I took him up on it. And when I also felt like I had been invited to go to Israel to meet God, I know it sounds crazy, but I did it for Christmas. I thought it was important to have that name on my passport. So that's when I legally changed my name.
John and or Cheyenne, whichever name you
Either
prefer,
way,
we're going to thank you for your very entertaining appearance here today. It's
been
been
an
great
honor.
reconnecting with you after all the years ago to be able to talk regularly and see each other when I'm in California. So I really have been very happy that we've been able to do that.
Me too. And again, really, I'm honored that you asked. So thank you.
All right. So long.
Ciao.